Hello there, and then welcome to a brand new lesson. This is Happy on Numbers, where we learn maths the easy way. In this lesson, we are looking at simple interest. When we say simple interest, what comes to mind? First of all, when we say interest on money, it's simply the cost of money. What do I mean by the cost of money? So if you are a borrower and you take a loan from a bank, see, now you would have to pay back what you have taken plus an extra money. That extra money you add is what we call the interest to the bank, right? Or to the lender. Now, if you are rather a lender or you are saving in a bank and then you make deposits in a bank, the bank uses it and then pays you an extra money. You see, that is also another form of interest. Simple interest here is the easiest way we can calculate interest based on the amount you were borrowed or you are saving in the bank. All right. This is just a gist on what simple interest is. So let's look at the formula that governs this simple interest and its calculations. Now, this you see on your screen is the basic formula that relates simple interest to other parameters. So it says you have I, which is equal to your P times R times T. It can also be written as I is equal to P times R times T all over 100. What is the difference between the two? They're actually the same formula. But then, before I even explain the two, the I here is the interest earned or paid. You see, the final amount of money that you are going to earn or to pay. Now, the principal here is the starting amount of money. So if you deposit an amount in a bank expecting an interest, the amount you deposited is what you call your principal. The rate here is what expressed as a decimal or fraction. That is the rate of the interest. How fast or how slow are you getting the interest? Then the time that you are expecting the interest, is it a year or 2 years? And most of the time it is expressed in years. Now back to the rate. The rate is sometimes given as a percentage or as a decimal. If you are given as a decimal, you can straightforward use this formula. But if you are given as a percentage, then you are expected to use this formula. Apart from that, both formulas are actually the same thing. So this for when you have it in decimal, and this for when you have it as what? A percentage. Now, when I was explaining, I made mention that as the lender, you are giving out the money, and as the borrower, you are taking the money. You see, so after the interest and everything has been calculated, you go for $500 or CDs from a bank, and you have to pay an interest that is worth, let's say, a $50 or CDs. The total amount you are supposed to give back to the bank now becomes the principal you took, which is in this case the 500 I said you have taken, plus the interest. You see, and that will give you the total amount. You see, so this is the formula here. For the total amount, you would have to pay back the principal plus what? The interest. So with this, let's solve some real world examples and then just see how best we can understand this concept. So let's look at this first question here, which says it is asking that if you invest $5,000 for 4 years at a simple interest rate of 6 per annum, how much interest will you earn? You see, so if you invest $500, so that is $5,000 for 4 years at a simple interest rate of 6 per annum, how much interest will you earn? So the first thing we need to do here is to identify our parameters. You see, so what have we been given? The amount you are investing or borrowing is always what we call your principal. So we say our P is equal to, that is 5,000. And then the I told you the time is always in years. You see, so most of the times these will give you the clues as to what a particular parameter is. So your time is what? 4 years. And then at a simple interest rate of 6 per annum. You see, in this case here, we're given as 6, not as decimal. That is the rate. So our rate is equal to 6 per annum. Now, how much interest will you earn? So then we quote our formula, which says the interest is equal to. So the question now is, are we going to use this, which has no over 100, or we are going to use this, which has over 100? Take note, you'd always use this if the rate wasn't given to you as a what? As a decimal. Over here, the rate was given to us as a whole number. So we would use this one. The rate wasn't given to us as a decimal. So then we will say our simple interest is equal to the principal times time times rate all over your 100. Then now substituting, we say our interest is equal to the principal was what? Your 5,000, then times your time, which is 4 years, times your rate, which is 6, all over your 100. Simplifying further, we have this 0, these 2 zeros here, cancelling out these 2 zeros. You see, then we'll be left with the 50 times 4 times 6. 50 times 4 times 6. And if you have to evaluate that, you have your interest being $1,200. How do you do that? You can just say 5 times 4, it gives us a 20, then times your 6, which is 120, then you add this your 0. So our interest is 1,200, you see. So therefore, we say the simple interest end is your 1,200 here. Very, very simple. All right. In this case here, you see we didn't apply the second formula, that is the total amount. This time around, let's solve one more question that would ask us to do that. So this second question, which might probably be our last one, says a loan of $800 is taken for 18 months at 10 simple interest. You see, what is the total amount that must be what? Repaid. Okay, so how do we go about it? Our solution. Take note of what we are being asked to look for. The total amount. You see, and if you remember, the formula for the total amount is the principal plus the interest. So it simply means before we get our total amount, we need to first of all calculate the simple interest. Then we add it to the principal. You see, then you know how much in total you would have to what? Give back after the loan period. So we have our principal here, first of all, being what? Your $800. And then it was taken for 18 months. That is the time. So our time is 18 months. But take note, per our parameters, we said the time should always be in years. The time should always be in years. That simply means you would have to apply what we call your algebra here. So before we even solve the question, we would have to convert 18 months to years. How do we do that? Now, we know that there are 12 months in a year. So 18 months. You see, we want to apply proportion. So 18 months, would it be more or less? If more, let's divide. So that is 18 over 12 times 1. And if you have to evaluate this, what are you going to get? You are going to get a 1.5. So this simply means our time is actually a 1.5 years. You see, then we continue with the remaining parameters. 10 simple interest, that is the rate. So our rate is given as what? 10. And take note, it wasn't given as a decimal. So we would use the over 100. We quote our formula which says interest is equal to principal times time times rate all over the 100. And substituting, we have 800, which was our principal, times the time, which we have calculated to be, take note, which we have calculated to be 1.5. Then times the rate, which was given as what? 10. So over 100. So simplifying further, let me just copy this and paste that here. Simplifying further, we are going to get these zeros here, cancelling out the zeros. So our interest now is an 8 times, instead of 1.5, we can easily rewrite it as 15 over 10 times your 10, so that we can easily work. That is if you are not using a calculator. But if you are using a calculator, you can just punch it out and go. So we have this 10 here, cancelling out this 10. Then what we are now left with is 8 times 15. 8 times 15. And 8 times 15 gives us what? A 120. So our interest end after the period is, or interest to be paid after the period is $120. But the question was, how much is to be repaid? How much? You see, that is the total amount that is supposed to be repaid. And we know our formula, don't we? So we know that the total amount, let's say A, is your principal times your interest. So our total amount is then the principal, which was 800, plus the interest, which we have calculated to be 120. Adding this then gives us a 920. So this here is the total amount. So we say, therefore, the total amount to be repaid is what? $920. And that is it. So basically, that is what we need to know on simple interest. Now, in as much as you know how to work with algebra, sometimes you'd be asked to look for the rate or the time or the year or the principal. All you need to do is to make one the subject, and you are good to go. I would create other lessons where we would have to be solving all of this one. But for this particular one, I would give some exercises you can try on your own. So here are just 4 questions you can try on your own just to test your understanding. Let's have beyond numbers where we learn maths the easy way. If this is your first time on this channel and you do want to be notified anytime I release the next lesson, you can subscribe if you so do wish. See you in our next lesson. and then bye for now.